a family that did a lot of canoeing. I have two parents, my mom and dad, Aleks, and my pet sister, and two older brothers, Eli and Sawyer. And my mom was pregnant with each of us on a different river. And when the three of us kids came of age at 13, we returned as a family to those rivers and paddled them. And on one of the rivers, we went on the Kazan in northern Canada, and I fell in love with the tundra up there. So when I turned 20, I decided to do a trip of my own with one of my brothers, Sawyer, my cousin, and a friend, and we did an 1,000-mile trip across Canada in 40 days. We ran into ice on day 8, had a ton of wildfires that we had to portage through, and had 15 days straight of headwind, but we made it, and it was awesome.
Hello, my name's Wally Shaver. I'm from Chelsea, Quebec, just outside Ottawa. In 1969, as a young man with the YMCA, I was part of a movement to try to reestablish the boys' camp, the YMCA boys' camp at the headwaters of the Des Moines River. And this experience has led to a career for me involving the Des Moines River. The camp itself didn't take place, but out of that movement, I developed a wilderness canoeing program called Black Feather Wilderness Adventures, which still exists today under Wendy Grader's excellent ownership. And later on, I joined forces with Harris to form a company called Trailhead, which still is going strong in Ottawa. We sold it in 2012. Both those companies spent 40 years using the Des Moines, loving the Des Moines as a wilderness whitewater canoeing playground. Ran whitewater canoeing trips, canoe schools that prepared people to go on our large expeditions all through the Northwest Territories. So the Des Moines has been very important to me in my life, and I finally, hopefully, repaid a little bit of what I owe the Des Moines back by writing a book about its history.
Ed Strzyk is an award-winning writer and an amazing photographer who published a number of books and written many articles in magazines like National Geography, Canadian Geographic, Explore, and others. You're coming to the symposium and you're going to be talking about your latest book. That book, I think, will form the story of your presentation. You want to take just a few minutes and tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, I think your audience would be interested because I was asked by an American publisher to write a book about what the Arctic would look like in 25, 50 years based on, all the things that are happening, climate change, political developments, mining and oil and gas developments. And I think, one of the conclusions is that we're going to see, it's obviously going to get warmer and Arctic storms are going to be picking up steam. We're probably going to get a lot more fog on the coast. We're going to probably lose a few species in the southern regions. Polar bears will probably be on their last leg in western Hudson Bay and the Beaufort Sea region. Grizzly bears are going to be doing very well, in areas like the Firth River, the Mackenzie Delta. They will no longer have to hibernate for 8 months a year. They'll have an extra month or so of time to hunt on land. So the book is really just trying to create scenarios. What is it going to look like? And I think the interest to your audience is that one of the things that I do talk about is that we're going to see some very dramatic changes in the hydrology that drives the rivers of the Northwest Territories and Nunavut. And I think that probably the days of paddling Arctic rivers like the Thompson, the Kujua, and the Nook are probably going to be biased by then. We're already seeing water levels drop pretty dramatically in those rivers. And I think some of the more shallow rivers that you see in the northern Yukon, like the Snake, for example, I think that the upper reaches of the snake are going to be, they won't be gone, but the season is going to be a lot shorter than it is now. And I think that, like skiing, as you well know, downhill skiing, it's going to be a lot more risky to plan ahead for a lot of these trips. And so really that's what the book is all about, and I described to some extent how I went about writing this book, and it was based on, probably 15, 20 trips that I did to the Arctic with scientists, with the Inuit, the Dene, and other people.
Hi, my name's David Pelly, and my presentation at this year's symposium is an illustration of the power of Inuit oral history. As some people know, I've been working in the Arctic, largely documenting and publishing the results of the Inuit oral history collection for the past 25 years. And I have to say that I've never failed to be impressed by the power of the old stories that the elders were able to relate to us, based entirely on the verbal accounts that they had heard as young people, often from their grandparents and great-grandparents, which had been passed down to them through generations. We are losing that now, of course, because the young generation of Inuit, just like youngsters everywhere, have access to all of the high-tech tools of our modern society, and so they're much less inclined to sit at their grandparents' knee and hear these stories. So I feel very fortunate that my timing was just right to be involved in recording really the last generation of elders to have this powerful experience of relating the old traditional knowledge of their people. In this particular case, I'm focused on an area called Gusev, which is the Inuit name for Wager Bay in the northwest corner of Hudson Bay. And I was contracted 25 years ago by Parks Canada to document the oral history of that region as they prepared to establish, or to try to establish, a national park there. That park has now been established, but in that process, I had the privilege of recording the personal stories and memories of all of the living elders whose families had at some time or other lived in that Gusev area. All of those elders are gone now, but the good news is that their stories and their knowledge of the history of that area it has been preserved, and now not only preserved but published in a trade book. And it's not very often that a publisher in Canada will actually feature Indigenous traditional knowledge in the manner that Dundurn has done in this book. So I'm really quite excited about the prospect of seeing